King Herod the Great sent his troops down to Bethlehem to kill all the babies 2 years and under. Remember that story? King Herod the Great died in 4 BC. Now, how could Jesus Christ be born 4 to 6 years before himself? We know the exact date 300 years earlier when Alexander the Great was born. We know the exact date he died. We know his mother. We know his father. We know what happened to both of them. But we don't know what happened to Mary. We don't know what happened to Joseph. We don't know anything about Jesus to speak of. And the apocryphal books that do speak about his youth and so forth, they don't put out in the market. It's not in the Bible. Has this been worthwhile, folks? Is it enlightening? Is this something that most people want to hear, David?
Yes.
Yeah, back in the right. Back there.
I just wonder if you'd give me a couple of sentences on the way I see this. It's almost pure political competition from the get-go. And whoever constructed the Bible had to survive against competing gods, competing religions, so they made something up and put some force with it in order to survive. And so it has come down to us and is continually competing for survival.
Bart Floyd, one of my panel members, asked me once, he said, Gary, he said, you've seen some comparative religions and so forth. I said, well, I'm not an expert on a lot of that. The Bible's pretty much my thing, but yeah, I've looked into a lot of them. He said, how many gods do you think there have been? And my answer is this. Almost one for each ego. I think ego and God are synonymous. Ego has a job to be more than it is. It always tries to be more than it is. Why not have a God that's so supernatural and so super this and super that and promote it to make your ego be heard? And if I can get 4 or 5 people behind my God, we got an army. That's my answer to that.
Thank you.
You have a few links to some debates that you had.
Yeah.
There's been public debates.
Yeah, internet.
They turn it back and forth. Not real time, I guess.
No.
Have you had any of those? Have you ever tried to?
I've debated quite a few, yeah. But the internet debates are in print, so it's easy. You know, and I don't have to reproduce them.
Who listens to the results of the debate? Where does
Panel,
that take us?
panels, the panels do. And, you know, we involve the panel. The panel participates. A lot of them participates. Some of the panel never say a word. They just want to be part of it. They want part of the education. But we got people who participate. Urban participates quite a bit. Bart Floyd participating now. Diane participates once in a while. We've got 4 or 5 others across the country that participate. George?
My question is, if we were not brainwashed and conditioned with a God growing up, would there be a God?
Yeah.
Because of all the gods, no matter what part of the country you're brought up in, it's a different religion, it's a different God, and to me, it's all invention. For, I don't know, fear, insecurity, whatever.
Programming.
Ego. Although it is a social thing, right? Religion is a social thing.
And I think George and I agree that we think a lot is in the genes. I mean, after cycle after cycle after cycle, birds fly because it's genetic. Dogs bark because it's genetic. Our behavior is genetic also. And I think the genes contribute a lot to our leaning toward picking up on a God, whether we be born Islamic or whatever. Another thing is the Catholic people condemn divorce. In the Bible, in Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 8, God himself is a divorcee. He divorced because of her sinning and going to other gods. He divorced both Israel and Judah. And then he took them back. But he gave her a bill of divorce, is the wording. Now, anybody gives a bill, anybody who's been divorced, anybody gives a bill of divorce, you are divorced. And it says that, black and white. Now, why the Catholics are against divorce when their own model, God, did a divorce? Of course, he beat the Jews up more than anybody else did. They lost more battles than they won. And then he made them march around the desert Do you know how many he took out of Egypt? Approximately 3 million.
Wow.
How do you know that? Because 603,550 were the men over 20 that could bear arms. So the Torah, in its Torah notes you saw, it says to have that kind of people over 20 years old, actuarially they had to have close to 3 million. Now you got another million on top of Las Vegas population that one man without cell phones or communication takes them away. I don't think so. And then he marches them around the desert because go kill every man, woman, and child, and they let some get away. Oh, you let somebody get away. I'll march you in the desert till you're dead. That whole generation died in the desert. Everybody came out of Egypt 20 and over. It was the next generation that went with Joshua and started doing the same thing all over again. But they learned their lesson. He's not a good God, folks. If he is, tell me how. Anything else? Jim?
He's a good guy because he makes a lot of people rich.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.